Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Welcome to this research paper presentation on cybersecurity for autonomous vehicles, review of attacks and defenses. A quick introduction about myself. Hi, I am Simranpreet Singh Saini. I am currently pursuing my master's in cybersecurity from Georgia Tech. Currently, I am in my summer term and I am a part of Introduction to Cyber Physical Systems course. In this presentation, I will be putting forward my thoughts and would be sharing the insights from the mentioned research paper. Hope you like the presentation. I would like to thank the authors of this research paper, Mr. Kim from the School of Cybersecurity, Korea University, Seoul, Mr. Jun Seok Kim from School of Cybersecurity, Korea University, uh, Mr. Seong Hoon Jeong from the School of Cybersecurity, Korea as well, Miss Jo Hee Park from TMS Security TFT, Hyundai Motor Company, and Mr. Hugh Kang Kim from School of Cybersecurity, Korea University, for putting this paper together and giving us so many insights and relevant information about the trends in the autonomous vehicle market. Uh, so yeah, let's get started with the presentation. Smart is no more a term used to excite people about technology, but now it is the need of the hour. Smart mobility being a crucial element of the smart revolution. It is our responsibility to ensure that these autonomous systems are well protected from hackers to prevent any loss to quality of life and keep humans safe. This research paper is a systematic research on attacks and defenses for autonomous vehicles. Uh, in this research paper, they have classified autonomous attacks into three categories of autonomous control systems, autonomous driving system components, and vehicle to everything communications. Uh, we'll be also discussing the defenses against such attacks, which are classified into security architecture, intrusion detection, and anomaly detection. With the evolution of technology, we are becoming tech savvy or more smarter with each passing day, which also means traditional cities are becoming smarter. The components of a smart city include smart mobility, smart living, smart environments, smart economy, and smart governance. Now, with technology in everything around us, cyber threats are also increasing at a very fast pace. Hackers see this as an opportunity to exploit this fast paced environment and perform attacks on unsecured cyber infrastructure, which is at a very nascent stage. One example is when in 2005, two security researchers controlled the Jeep remotely with the ability to stop the car on a highway. Just think about it. You're just riding your vehicle and all of a sudden it stops. Frightening, right? So yeah, similar thing happened with Keen Labs, who exploited Tesla and BMW systems very recently in 2017 and 2019 to control them wirelessly using zero-day exploits in their web browsers. They could take over their systems, they could control the car, the infotainment system on the car, and uh, make them do anything they want. Now just think about it. If hackers take over smart vehicles, what havoc they can create. It can lead to state shutdowns or even people getting hurt. Before we become Superman and start protecting autonomous vehicles, we first need to know how they work and what all systems are installed in an autonomous vehicle and how complex the structure is. So there are three main key elements in an autonomous vehicle. The first one is automotive control system, second one is an autonomous driving system, and the third one is vehicle to everything or V2X system. I'll give a brief about these in this slide and we will be covering them in depth in the next few slides. Let's first look at automotive control systems. So these are the systems that contain an in-vehicle network that connects our main devices to other devices. In these systems, there are effectively two types of components in use, units and networks. The units part is governed by the electronic control unit or ECU, which performs multiple operations inside the car and can be effectively called a mini brain. They perform operations like controlling the state of automatic transmission, managing the sensors inside the vehicles, and many other operations which help the car function well. Even your power windows are controlled using ECUs. The second part is the network path in a vehicle, which is governed by protocols like CAN, which stands for Controller Area Network, LIN, which stands for Local Interconnect Network, RF, which stands for Radio Frequency, and FlexRay, which are primarily used to connect the ECUs and transfer data among them. The second key component of an autonomous vehicle is autonomous driving system. These components are responsible for the smooth working of a vehicle while in autonomous mode. The key components here are LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, and it's basically a sensor to detect objects. Second one is a video camera, which records the surroundings and acts accordingly. A global positioning system, which records the location of a vehicle. A radio detection, and a range, which is radar sensor. We also have a central computer, which is used for processing, and an ultrasonic sensor for obstacle detection. The last key element is the vehicle to everything system, which is the communication between a vehicle and any entity that may affect or may be affected by the vehicle. The three categories in this are vehicle to vehicle systems, vehicle to infrastructure systems, and vehicle to network communications. Which include traffic efficiency using DSRC, cooperative driving using visible light communication, and the infotainment systems that we have in our vehicles for user interactions. Now let's go deeper into the automotive control system components. The first one here, as we discussed in the previous slide, is an ECU, which is a unit and also called the brain of a car. These are responsible for performing multiple operations across the vehicle. These usually perform unit or isolated operations so that there is no issue in any of the operations they perform. Examples are body control modules, which include door, seat, power lock, airbags, AC control, and light controls. And on the powertrain control modules, we have anti-lock braking system, an engine control unit, and a transmission control unit. These are in abundance in a vehicle since they perform only single tasks. And in luxury cars, they might go up to 80, but in an average car, it would be around 50 ECUs per car. The second component that we would talk about here is the network part of our system. And let's start with the control area network protocol. This protocol was introduced by Robert Bosch back in 1986, and it was designed for automobiles exclusively. It is basically a serial communications protocol, and it allows number of electronic units on a single vehicle to share essential control data. And this is a broadcast type of protocol, which means that all the nodes on this network can hear whatever message is being sent. In order to send the targeted messages, the CAN hardware provides local filtering so that each node may react only when it is asked to. And the CAN network is used for body systems, engine management, and transmission as well. The other two network components of automotive control systems are local interconnect network and FlexRay. LIN bus is a low-cost standard for low-end multiplex communication in automotive networks. Though the controller area network addresses all the functionalities that we need, but it is really expensive and cannot be used for very basic operations like power windows or which do not require high speed. So modern automotive networks use a combination of LIN for low-cost applications, primarily in body electronics, and CAM for powertrain and body communications, and the emerging X-ray bus for high-speed synchronized data communication in advanced systems such as active suspension. If we look at FlexRay now, I would say it's an upgrade over CAN. It is basically there. The need arose because the advanced control and safety systems now comprise of multiple sensors, actuators, and electronic control units, which cannot be really handled by CAN alone. And this coupled with growing bandwidth requirements with today's advanced vehicles, CAN buses weren't enough. So they had to come with FlexRay. This table displays the various network protocols being used in autonomous vehicles, and it's a very good comparison. So let's take a look at the CAN, LIN, and the FlexRay columns. If we look, the cost here, CAN costs medium, LIN would cost low, and FlexRay costs high. And if we look at now the maximum data rate speeds, we would know why. So the CAN data rate has about 1 Mbps, the LIN has about 19.2 kbps, which is pretty slow, and the flex ray provides about 20 megabits per second of speed, and that is why it is super expensive and really efficient. Now let's take a look at the autonomous driving system components. Here, the first component is a LiDAR unit, which creates a 360-degree map of vehicle surroundings using lasers. And then the second component is a video camera, which is used to capture a 2D picture and detect objects surrounding the vehicle. The third is a GPS, which is a global positioning system and provides location details. The radar sensor uses burst of sound to determine distance between objects, and the computer provides a built-in storage and computing for live data processing so that the autonomous vehicle can run fine. Now let's go deeper into the autonomous driving system components. The first one is LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging Sensor. So LiDAR is a method for determining distance by targeting an object or a surface with a laser and measuring the time for the reflected light to return to the receiver. It helps autonomous vehicles navigate environments in real time by accurately predicting depth, which allows to the vehicle to know the distance up to a few centimeters to or 60 meters away. It's also suitable for 3D mapping and helps the vehicle develop an image of the environment, just like our eyes. The second thing is a video camera. Now, video cameras read traffic lights and road signs and monitor pedestrians and obstacles so that the car is able to gauge all of that in advance and uh, no bad things happen. And the third one is global positioning system, which we already discussed, which collects signals transmitted from GPS satellites and helps in detecting the position of a vehicle. Again, there's this ultrasonic sensor which measures the position of very close objects which are around curves and nearby vehicles by emitting ultrasonic sound waves, just like bats do. The third and last component of an autonomous vehicle is vehicle to everything systems. The network communication between the car and an external element is referred to as V2X or vehicle to everything. V2X technology consists of vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure, and vehicle to network communications. Traffic efficiency using DSRC is essentially a wireless communication technology that enables vehicles to communicate with each other and other road users directly without involving cellular or other infrastructure. Also, for your information, DSRC stands for Dedicated Short Range Communications. The second component is traffic safety or cooperative driving using visible light communication or VLC. So this is basically vehicle speed data, throttle position and brake stepping indicator being transmitted to other vehicles, and this data is essentially obtained by reading the engine control unit in the car. Now let's take a deeper look into vehicle to everything components. The first one is traffic efficiency measurement using dedicated short range communications. So each vehicle sends 10 times per second its location, heading and speed in a secure and anonymous manner. And all the surrounding vehicles receive this information and each estimates the risk imposed by the transmitting vehicle so that they can effectively predict whether there would be an accident or not. That's smart, right? Also, the DSRC includes an onboard unit inside the vehicle and infrastructure load structure unit as RSU outside the vehicle. The onboard unit is composed of a communication control unit, routing table, and local dynamic map. The communication control unit is a unit for communicating between the interior and exterior of the vehicle. The routing table stores neighboring vehicle information and timestamps. The local dynamic map is a map database that stores information on road conditions and traffic surrounding the vehicle so that our smart vehicle knows how the road is, and in case there's a bump or anything, it can slow down wherever needed. The RSU, on the other hand, is a device for V2I communication. It communicates with location servers through a wired or wireless network for tracking information on all vehicles. So we can call it as a central unit. The second component here is a traffic safety or cooperative driving using visible light communication. The transmitted data are vehicle speed data, throttle position, and brake stepping indicator. The data are obtained by our ECUs and are shared between cars while uh, they are driving themselves. And then The last component of vehicle to everything component is a vehicle to user. The Bluetooth infotainment systems that we use in our car to play music, for navigation, those are uh, you know an essential component as well. Here is a representation of a V2X system. So here we have a control of vehicles and an RSU unit, which is a roadside unit, which is basically a central location where all the information is coming in from all the vehicles. Here we see a V2V communication happening between this vehicle and this vehicle. Also, there's a collision warning going on between this vehicle and this vehicle, saying as to okay, if you're going on this speed, slow it down because there might be an accident that might happen. Also, there's an accident warning being given, but if the other vehicle does not slow down, then an accident happens here. Now, since we know how an autonomous vehicle looks like, how it works, and what the various components are, let's dive into what attacks are possible on the autonomous vehicles. So the attack categories for autonomous vehicles are as follows. For automotive control systems, the attackers primarily target the ECUs, the in-vehicle networks, and the automotive key. In the autonomous driving system, they target usually the sensors, which are providing information to the car to work, and the mobile applications, which are connected to the car. The As a part of the V2X communication component, they target the VA nets, which is the virtual environment networks, and the infotainment systems. Now let's dive into the various attacks that are possible on our ECU infrastructure inside the car. And let's look at the ECU vulnerabilities. So as per a research paper presented by Kosher in 2010, ECU can be attacked by means of CAN, which as we discussed is a network protocol, due to lack of authentication fields, weak access control, and DOS vulnerabilities in the CAN network protocol. So CAN in its very bare minimum way does not provide these things by default, and we have to use recent versions or more developed versions of CAN to be protected from such attacks. So this vulnerability allowed a hacker to load a firmware into the major ECUs of the vehicle without authorization and basically take control of the car. So the things that were possible using this was opening the door of your vehicle by taking over the remote control ECU in a vehicle and controlling the telematic devices, which are essentially your dashboard and the speedometers and everything that you see on the console. And attackers can also manipulate car speed and display information using your uh, this attack. We'll be also taking a look at how it looks like in the next slide. The next vulnerability and attack that happened was mentioned in the research paper presented by Burakova in 2016. Uh, they attacked the SAEJ 1939 security standard and essentially all the related vehicles to it. So this is a standard which is usually used by big trucks and school buses. So essentially they exploited the ECU and CAN vulnerabilities to change the instrument cluster messages on these vehicles, which means they can fake the speed that you're going on. They can essentially control the speed and torque of these vehicles, which can cause them to have accidents or maybe cause havoc around the environment. These attacks happened because anyone can purchase these standards from their website and look for loopholes into it and exploit them, because that's what Burakova did. As discussed in the previous slide on the research paper by Kosher in 2010, this is the speedometer of the vehicle. As you can see, it says pawned by a car shocked, and it displays wrong values here. Also, if you see, look at the speedometer reading, it's at 140, which is not true, and it has been manipulated using a cyber attack. At As we have already taken a look at the ECU vulnerabilities, now let's take a look at the vulnerabilities in vehicle networks. So, as mentioned in the research paper by Miller and Wolesk in 2013, They essentially attacked the technological accessories embedded in Ford Escape and Toyota Prius, which are pretty common cars in the US. So what they did was they used a OBD2 connector and inserted it into the vehicle. So this connector had a shell installed into it, which caused remote control execution through Bluetooth and telematic devices inside the car. Now, in Toyota Prius, uh, there was this vulnerability wherein only the important CAN messages had a message checksum at the end of each packet. Others did not, which was exploited by this attack, and the CAN and control ECUs were compromised. A similar case happened for Ford Escape. There was this sensor which was to measure gas and air, and whenever they were too less or too high, it used to notify the user on the dashboard. So what these guys did was they sent the below packet that you can see on the screen, IDH07, IDLE0, and they overloaded the CAN protocol, and the CAN network service was denied. In the next slide, I'll be sharing how the dashboard looked like. As you can see, this is the Ford Escape dashboard. And if you can see here, there's this text written miles to E, fuel level low, which means that something has gone down because you don't really see dash 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 in your dashboard uh, most of the time. And it pretty much explains the attack. So let's take a look at the automotive key related attacks. So the first one is wherein the passive keyless entry and start PKES system of a vehicle, which is used in modern cars for keyless entries, was attacked by duplicating the existing signal using transceivers. The second attack that's possible on keyless entry cars is cryptanalytic attacks, which kind of combine two weaknesses of the system. Uh, that is the degree of filter functionality and the dependency between sessions. So this attack allowed the attacker to recover a secret key after collecting the key from the car through a few authentication attempts. The strongest attack can give you a key within 6 minutes, which is like really quick and which is like really unsafe. So essentially a guy can steal your car in 6 minutes. Yeah. And the third the third vulnerability here is in the vehicle immobilizer, which is also key, used by vehicle manufacturers and original equipment manufacturers. So what they did was first they recovered encryption algorithms and keys, and then from the immobilizer, and then Volkswagen Group remote control signal was transmitted using the recovered key, and the signal sent from the vehicle was eavesdropped upon to allow arbitrary access to the vehicle. This attack recovered the encryption key and replicated the remote control key with 4 to 8 rolling codes and a very short circulation time, which is very concerning given the security of our vehicles. And the results of this study affected millions of vehicles worldwide and are now considered a significant component of physical system security. Now let's take a look at the attacks and vulnerabilities for sensor and mobile applications. So the first one here is an attack that was researched on Tesla vehicles very recently in 2016, which looked for ultrasonic sensor, millimeter wave radar, and cameras deployed uh, inside a Tesla, and it was able to, uh, you know, uh, touch the radio interference and spoof the sensors inside the Tesla, which can effectively mean that these values can be changed while Tesla is working in an autonomous mode, and it can cause bad effects. The second vulnerability here is vehicle attacks possible using a driver's smartphone. So you must think, oh, how is that possible? So first, an attacker who steals the control of a smartphone from the driver sends a malicious message to the vehicle's internal network using the mirror link protocol. Now, this protocol has a lot of vulnerabilities, and in its 1v1 implementation, uh, there were a lot of issues. Now, the attacker can send CAN packets to the vehicle directly. What that means is the car would think that these packets are coming from ECUs, but no, these are coming from the attacker, and he can if, do whatever he wants with the vehicle. The third and the most critical one of all was a vulnerability that was found in BlueLink back in 2017. Now, this is a vehicle control application, and it's managed by the Hyundai Motor Company in Korea and worldwide. So, an attacker could extract the username, password, and personal identification PIN of a user while the BlueLink app sent personal information to Hyundai. So, which effectively meant that the contents weren't being encrypted, and the attacker was able to exploit this vulnerability to launch a fatal attack that could be, initiated remotely by unlocking the vehicle. Now let's look at attack on V2X communication technologies. The first one here is a demonstrated remote attack that was carried out on any Fiat Chrysler vehicle. Now what this attack used was what we call a D-bus. So a D-bus is a message bus system, which is a simple way for applications to talk to one another. In addition to inter-process communication, debug helps coordinate process lifecycle. It makes it simple and reliable to code a single instance application. Now, what happened was the authors were able to reprogram a V850 chip to send arbitrary CAN messages from an open multimedia applications platform chip, which essentially meant uh, these messages were being sent anonymously and to other processes on the dbus, which meant that any CAN message could be sent to these processes and any kind of task could be performed. This the attacker exploited security threats, including code injection and memory corruption. Now, as we've already seen the vulnerabilities and attacks on various categories, now let's take a look at how we can defend these categories for autonomous vehicles. The first one is security architecture for autonomous vehicles, where we'll see how we can protect CAN or ECU security, VANET security, and we look at security design process and framework. We'll also look at intrusion detection systems for CAN, for VANET. Also, we'll see how we can incorporate artificial intelligence with big data into our cybersecurity frameworks and to defend our vehicles better. Now, let's take a look at defenses for the CAN or ECU security. The first one here is uh, using the MAC or the message authentication code protocol for our CAN protocol, which means that we'll effectively compute the message to provide guarantees of integrity and reliability, in addition to delayed data authentication to prevent the interruption of real-time traffic. The second one would be using CAN auth, which is something that is built over CAN and is much better in terms of authentication. So it's an authentication protocol for broadcast communication, particularly applicable to the CAN bus. A benefit is that it does not require modification of the existing nodes, and the limited size of CAN is not a problem anymore if we use this protocol. And it allows us to implement defense mechanism in the extra space that we have now, wherein we can authenticate the request as well. The last defense against CAN and ECU security vulnerabilities is using CAN ID shuffling, which essentially shuffles the CAN ID after a given period of time and essentially gives us the moving target defense. And it makes it very difficult for the attacker to figure out the CAN ID, and hence he cannot send requests. Now this method is very good because we don't have to change other components of the CAN packet like data framing cycle and data field formats. So it is really preferred. Now let's take a look at the defenses for our VANET security. The first one is uh, having a security session layer for Bluetooth communication to essentially protect connection between a smartphone and a vehicle so that other smartphones cannot interact with your vehicle. And we can implement a Diffie-Hellman scheme to have encrypted messages with a randomly generated key here. The second defense against vulnerabilities would be to have a group key agreement protocol for vehicular networks, which would help in preserving privacy while exchanging traffic data using a hash function. Also, we'll be able to integrate a password-based conditional here. Also, this protocol would be immune against impersonation, modification, and offline password guessing attacks. Let's take a look at intrusion detection system defense approaches for CAN and VANETs. So the first approach for CAN is basically to use the calculated entropy of CAN messages on the binary signal and protocol levels. So this calculation would be based on each CAN ID, a specific ECU, and can be identified as being attacked. So this was used by the researchers. The second approach that we can use is malicious detection algorithm. This algorithm detects attacks using the frequencies calculated by the CAN IDs of the messages. A list of CAN IDs is provided as an input, and this attack can be detected early by watching out for the appearance of a CAN ID that has not been used before. And the last one we have here is intrusion detection method, wherein the microcontrollers would have inbuilt security modules inside ECUs, which will help in protecting them and protecting the ECUs from performing DOS, impersonation, and isolation attacks. Each ECU identifies whether a message is normal or not, and that's how it works. The last intrusion detection defense against CAN is an algorithm that detects and repairs messages spoofed by an attacker using the vehicle's CAN network. Now, how it does this is by remotely rebooting the damaged ECU and switching it off after the abnormal node it is identified. Now let's take a look at the IDS strategies for VA nets. This was a collaborative intrusion detection strategy that was taken up by Straub in 2017. So this new system is composed of four parts. The vehicle level IDS works on each vehicle and detects attacks without the cooperation of the external systems. The vehicle area network IDS works with VNet with several vehicles that share their status with each other. And then a system on the RSU takes responsibility for the secure communication of the local VNet. The central system processes all the data from the VNS and identifies anomalies benefiting everyone. Now let's take a look at artificial intelligence using big data defenses. The first one here we have here is development Narayanan in 2016. He proposed that OBD secure alert can be used to determine abnormal activities that occur during driving. During the data collection phase, the CAN messages are collected via an OBD device connected to the OBD2 port in a vehicle. And then in the model generation phase, the system builds a hidden Markov model that expresses time series data. Now, using this model, if anything anomalous is detected, it is being reported back to the user. The second approach or the second defense using artificial intelligence is an anomaly detection algorithm based on time interval, uh, which takes less than 5 seconds to train a model. In this approach, the normal messages and signals have a regular frequency. So we assume that this is happening. And if the frequency is not regular, that's where it triggers and uh, effectively identifies the attack. The third approach that we'll talk about here is building a CAN message classifier using a generative adversarial network based IDS. The significance would be it can detect intrusion using model built from normal data. Now, GADS generates fake messages for training purposes instead of attacks, which allows them to detect attacks that have never been seen before. So, which is essentially coming up with signature-based attack IDS limitations. And the this experiment was performed using four types of attacks: DOS, fuzzy, RPM modification, and gear positioning. And the performance measurement was with 100% accuracy on the first discriminator and 98% accuracy on the second discriminator, which is really good. As I conclude this paper presentation, I would like to highlight a few facts. The first one is that, as we saw, the first car attack was an attack on the interior of the car involving the ECU and CAN, and that was back in 2005. Uh, But what we have to understand is that these attacks are only going to get dreader and even more deadlier. So, being cybersecurity enthusiast, I would request everyone to focus on developing secure infrastructures for autonomous vehicles and define strategies that can be used across industry. Um, though I would also like to highlight that as these attacks are being created, defenses are being created as well, but the pace is a bit slow. And understandably, that is because the protocols that are currently in use in vehicles are insecure and they cannot be changed in a day or so. But uh, if everyone tries together, maybe they can be. And if by means of this presentation I can make any impact, uh, then like that is what I feel should be done. Uh, Also, I feel the future of autonomous vehicles with these big car companies like BMW, Mercedes, Nissan, Hyundai, and Toyota would be in collaboration with IT companies, since they know the car making business, but they don't know the cybersecurity, the IT part of things. So that would be happening in the future. And again, I would like to reiterate that cyber attacks are not going down, and their aftermath might be bad. But uh, since we are all working together, uh, we can make this world a safer place. Thank you, everyone. I hope you liked this session, and I hope you had a good takeaway. Thank you.